There's a lot of things in this old world that just do not make sense. Like why there's so few believers on the firing line, while so many others sit the fence. But if you want to know where the Word of God stands, and believe it wants to use your feet and hands, it's time to take your faith out of the seats and into the streets, and come along with me. If you only look, then you will see on WCNTV.
Well, welcome again to another episode of WCNTV. I am Rob Hugh, your host, and we have another great show for you this afternoon. Before we do that, we need to do one more plug for our upcoming Ministry Expo and Conference, March 13th and 14th. That's going to be held in Marshfield, Wisconsin. We do this in a public shopping mall, and this is not your typical Christian conference. You're going to find it to be challenging. You're going to be equipped, and it is not politically correct, but you're going to get a lot of great information. We have assembled a team of presenters and speakers like you've not seen before. So we don't need you to pre-register or anything like that. We don't sell tickets. We do ask for a $10 suggested donation at the door per person. And then we also just take a free will offering for each of the speakers and presenters. So that is coming up just a little over a week from now, March 13th, Friday night. We'll be featuring Curtis Bowers, the producer of the Agenda documentaries, which you've seen here on the program before. And we'll also be showing his first movie Friday night. He will not be speaking on Saturday, so if you want to see Curtis, come and see him on Friday night. He'll be there at his exhibit booth on Saturday, so you'll be able to meet him and talk with him and his family. But I would encourage you to be there both Friday and Saturday. And if you need information on hotels or anything like that, feel free to contact me, and I will help you out. Email is best. It's just Rob, R-O-B, at WisconsinChristianNews.com. Well, you know, we're in a day and age where the family is really under fire. And that's our topic for today. The family is really fragmented. Really in distress. In fact, just the day before yesterday, I had another phone call. I get these frequently from people who are seeking counseling, seeking help, answers, prayer, and I do help them the best I can and connect them with others that can help them as well. But it's becoming a common theme. Families are being torn apart by a lot of different things. And our guest today is no stranger to problems in his life, like we all have experienced. But he is also the founder of the Natural Family Foundation. We're going to welcome J.R. Harrison. J.R., how are you doing?
I'm blessed, brother, and thanks very, very much for having me on your show today. It really means a lot.
I'm glad you were willing to come on.
Take the challenge.
There you go. You have quite a testimony, J.R. Why don't we start off with kind of your background and tell us a little bit about where you're coming from?
Yeah, if you want to start from the beginning, and that would be from the family, because that's where we all originate. I came from a very unique environment, and that's a nice way of putting it. It was a very troubling family. It was a very interesting family too. My mother was a Christian. She had me in church on Wednesday evenings in choir, and then she had me in church on Sunday. And my father, on the other hand, was, I guess there's an old saying that nobody's totally worthless. They can always serve as a horrible example. That'd be pretty good. That'd be a pretty good shot of my dad. He was a womanizer. He was an abuser. He had a little bit of Indian blood in him. So when he get a little bit of that fire water in him, he got mad and he got mean. So it was very interesting, those two playing against one another. And of course, when I graduated from high school, I wanted to go right where my dad was, right? I wanted the alcohol, the sex. It was the 60s, free love. So it was an incredible time to grow up. I made an awful lot of mistakes, but I learned a lot as well. And I mentioned my mother. She was going through a lot of problems early on, and she was always sick. And she'd take me to the doctor with her, and if she wasn't sick, she thought I was. And that was an interesting. She never really adjusted to life. I mean, it was so difficult for her. She had a real difficult time. And again, she was a Christian, but she had a difficult time finding the positives of life.
Did you have siblings, JR?
Yeah, I did. I had 3 sisters. Oh, and I prayed for a brother. Did I ever want a brother so bad? And I can remember when my last sister was born, I was so disappointed, so disappointed. I mean, I'm there all alone in a family of women and with my dad, and it's just an incredible experience. So yeah, it was 3 sisters and then little old JR here.
Well, I bet she was a lovely young lady, though, wasn't she?
Oh yeah, she wasn't a guy. I needed that. I needed that. Look, I have the same issue that David Arthur did. I needed the man in my family. I needed it desperately, and I was hoping that brother would fill it, but he didn't. So I still had the same gap, the same vacuum that actually not just David Arthur, but a lot of people in my generation grew up not really having a father. It was a very unique time, very unique time. So yeah, there was a vacuum there created, and you try to fill it, and I tried to fill it with sex, drugs, and rock and roll. I mean, that was the times, but it just didn't work, and it got me into a lot of trouble. And I mentioned to you before that I'm very grateful. There were some very rough things that happened in my life, in addition to what happened growing up. And I cursed God. I don't want to hear the replay. When I get to heaven, I don't want to hear that replay, because I did not have kind things to say, and I was not happy. I was a mad young man, a very mad young man. And but I'm so grateful for those things that happened to me today. I can look back on that and go, wow. I don't know, Rob. I don't know where I would be had not those bad things happened to me in my life. I mean, I must have been one real son of a gun. You know what I mean? And God just put all these things in my life that just humbled me and made me, well, they didn't make me secure. They made me insecure, which was good. I needed that. And today it still humbles me. So anyway, I had a great time growing up, and took that into one marriage. I got a divorce from that marriage. Of course, that was probably had to be. It just took me a long time to work things out. But the one thing that I've done, Rob, is that my mother taught me very well that behind every rainbow, there's a cloud. And I learned that, and I looked for troubles. And it almost drove me to the point of suicide, because I couldn't stand myself. I couldn't stand to hear myself complaining. But I eventually turned that in to a positive, because, for example, the business that I went into, I became an executive recruiter. And as an executive recruiter, your job is to look for trouble. You want to put the company and the candidate together, and there's always hurdles that have to be crossed. So you have to identify those hurdles, you have to remove them, and then put both parties together. So I was born for that job. I mean, I could always find trouble. And I think it serves me well in my ministry today, because I can see the problems out there and try to get other folks to help me address them. A lot of folks don't always understand where I'm coming from, and I get that, but it's still, I see it as a gift, and I use it daily.
How long were you in your first marriage, JR?
Oh, I don't know, 3-4 years.
Okay. And what were the issues that led to the divorce?
Me,
Yeah.
just
Okay.
it's basically me. I mean, I I should have never dated the girl to begin with, but it just happened that way. And then she got pregnant, so we had a child. And then during the marriage, the child passed away, so we decided to have another child. And then things got even worse. And that's, if you go to a psychologist, they would tell you that this generally happens, the child and things getting worse. I went into the service, and she came down with me, and then she left, and then just things went downhill from there. So that marriage eventually ended.
Hmm. And you were working full time and trying to support the family and
Yep.
all of that at the same time, right?
Yeah. When I wasn't in the service. Yeah.
Right.
To
Right.
start off with, yes, I did
Hmm.
work full time, but I had no appreciation for, I knew because I didn't have it, Rob, that I desperately wanted the family. I think that's part of the reason I got married to begin with. I needed that family. I mean, I got to be part of something, and everybody wants to be part of that family. It's kind of like an app we're born with, that we need a mother, we need a father, we need to be in that family environment. And when you don't have it, that vacuum creates a strong need. So I was forcing issues and just not doing what I should have been doing.
Hmm. So what led you from that point to where you're at today?
The Holy Spirit, and I'm very grateful for that. Very grateful for that.
Because
There was
you basically grew up in church, but
Yep.
walked away from it.
Oh
Walked
yeah.
away from your faith.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I was. I couldn't. I didn't walk away from it, Rob. I ran away from it.
Okay.
I couldn't get away from it fast enough.
Hmm.
And I went to Ohio University, and I kid a lot. I went to Ohio University because I say that they have you have to pass a bar exam, and Ohio University is noted for drinking and partying. And I passed. By the way, I passed that bar exam on the first go around. I had no problems at all doing that.
All right.
But it was just wild those days. My goodness. But I think about 33 years ago, I got bit by what I would call the righteous bug. Now, I didn't recognize it as the Holy Spirit. I didn't recognize it of what it really was. I just had this strong sense of right and wrong, and it wouldn't leave me alone. And I had a very, very successful business. And again, I took that skill set that I had finding problems and used it to my advantage and made an awful lot of money. I was at the mountaintop, Rob. I was working out of the house. I didn't have any inventory because I was in human resources. My inventory was working. All I needed was a phone, and I had it down. I mean, I was very respected for who I was, for the business I was in. And it just took a matter of a question, a couple calls, and I could put a candidate together with a company, do my job, and I could make anywhere from $15,000 to $25,000 a pop.
I'm going to
And
assume you weren't selling rainbow vacuum cleaners.
no, I was not.
Okay.
No,
All right.
I was selling people.
All right.
I was selling people. I was executive recruiter, and I was in data processing engineering. And it's interesting because I'm a technological caveman, but I knew the buzzwords to throw around. I learned them and the right questions to ask. But anyway, I mean, when I say I'm at the mountaintop, I was working maybe 2-3 hours a week. And the rest of the time, I wasn't using it that rest of the time productively. I was using it to go golfing, and I still had a little bit of that wild spirit in me. But once that I got bit by the righteous bug, that started to melt away. But what happened is I took my focus off of the business and started to put it on righteousness. And it's kind of like it's kind of like juggling balls. When you're an executive recruiter, you have to juggle a lot of balls. You have to keep in contact with people, and you have to stay on top of things. Well, when I got bit by the righteous bug, every now and then one of those balls would drop, and I wouldn't bother to pick it up because I still had plenty of balls. Well, the only thing that happened is by the end of my session with righteousness, I didn't have any balls left, and I eventually had to go to work for somebody else. I mean, for 2 years, I didn't make a penny because I was so focused on righteousness. so focused on America getting things right. And I ran across a gentleman by the name of Mark Harrington, which I think you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very interested in what Mark was doing. It was pro-life, but he had the righteous thing. He had it. And then I ran across this fellow by the name of Dave Daubenmire. And Dave and I and Mark formed an organization called Minutemen United. And Minutemen United, we were trying to get the pastors to preach to the times, to create an environment where Christian thoughts, ideals, and leaders could get traction in the marketplace, to speak relevant sermons.
What time frame, what year approximately was that?
Oh boy. I think it was 1999.
Okay.
1998, 1999 in that time frame.
Mm-hmm.
And Coach eventually went into what he already had, his own ministry, which is Past the Salt in the Time, which now has become the Salt and Light Brigade. And Mark Harrington left early on because he knew what kind of requirement this was going to have. And he had his own ministry, and good for him. You know, he should have done that. Although I'd love to have Mark stay with us, because Mark is an incredible manager. But anyway, after about 15 years of that, I got really frustrated, because we weren't getting anywhere. The pastors, you can't believe this. The pastors weren't listening.
I can believe it.
Can you imagine that?
Preaching to the choir here.
And actually, we got to the point where we actually stood in front of a mega church here in Columbus, Ohio, for 9 months, and we were there for all Sunday services and for the Saturday night service, and we had huge signs, 5 foot by 8 foot signs that said, "Help us save babies, help us save marriage." And the church eventually took us to court, and they got a restraining order against us. They took the Christians to church and got a restraining order for Christians not to be talking outside of a Christian church,
mm-hmm.
which is rather unique. But
not anymore. That actually happens quite frequently. So.
I know it does. It's a shame that the pastors, that the churches would not do what we believed they should do. That being said, and I'm going to kind of leapfrog into what I'm doing now, one of the problems in the church, and I'm going to call it the biggest problem in the church, is the fact that the families in the church are basically broken. You started the program talking about how the families were in such disarray. They were broken back then, and they're even worse now. But if the family is broken, how can you ever expect to have a whole church? For that matter, how can you ever expect to have a whole nation, a whole government, a whole educational system? The family is the foundation of all civilization. If you look back at Rome, you look back at Greece and other great civilizations, once the family went bye-bye, then the nation just followed it. And by the way, that is what we're doing today. And these are really, really interesting times, brother. Very interesting times when it comes to the family. So anyway, I jumped, I go, well, wait a minute. How can I talk to the pastors? How can I talk to them about what they're not doing when me as a father, I didn't educate my children. I didn't teach them more. The church was supposed to teach my kids morals, right? I mean, that's why God gave me the children, so the church could teach them morals. And God gave me children so the public education systems, the indoctrination centers, could teach them what they needed to know to get through life, right? That's why God gave me, my wife, the children.
That's how it's gone the last 2 or 3 generations.
And we're suffering for it.
Yeah.
We're suffering for it. Most parents put their children in these government indoctrination centers, and then 12 years later they send them back complete strangers. They don't have the parents' moral. Look at Bernie Sanders and what Bernie Sanders is doing, and ask yourself this question: do the parents of those children that are following Bernie Sanders, do they agree with their own children? And 99% of them do not and will not and should not. But yet we've put our children in the hands of the state in hands of complete strangers. And that's what we're getting. And we're going to take it one step further because of what we're doing with the homosexual movement, the transgender movement. I was listening to David Arthur this morning in terms of what public schools are doing to children and abuse. I mean, it's sexual abuse, what they're doing to our children. And we're paying for it. So that's where I am with the natural family. I recognize the critical importance of the family. What we're trying to do with the Natural Family Foundation.strong, naturalfamilyfoundation.strong, is we're trying to return the natural family to its rightful place as the foundation of our American culture. And before I ever started directing the organization, I was woken up in the middle of the night and I was searching for a name for the organization, like nuclear family or traditional family. And God put one word on my heart, and that was natural. And I'm going, what do you mean natural? What? It doesn't make sense. Nuclear sounds better. Traditional sounds better. Natural? But what I came to learn is that natural, one of the beauty of the word natural is it's self-defining. A natural family is one man, by the way, biologically born, one woman, biologically born, in a lifelong, committed, monogamous relationship with their biological and or adopted children. That is the family. It is supported by nature. It's also supported by the Bible, and nature and the Bible, by the way, confirm one another. I don't know whether you're aware of that or not, but they do.
So, getting back to your life story, you got remarried at one point?
Yes,
Right?
I did.
Okay.
An incredible woman. And what a guy like me, what kind of a woman do you think God would put in front of me to marry?
Just the right one.
Well, yeah. The right one happened to be a social worker. Okay. And only a social worker could handle this piece of work.
Mm-hmm.
Trust me. And I was a piece of work. And she's been such a blessing to me. Such a blessing to me. She's not as hot-headed as I am. She doesn't have all the vigor and the go. I describe her like as a Spock. She just now, Jim, let's talk about this.
My wife does the same thing, and you know what? It drives me crazy because she doesn't worry about anything. It says, why are you so worried about? God's got this. He'll take care of it. You know. And I'm all worked up. And so perfect balance, but I understand where you're coming from there.
And I'm an entrepreneur, and entrepreneurs are stubborn, opinionated, and they like to have control of things.
Yes, very pig-headed.
Yes. Well, your words, you can describe yourself.
Yes.
I'm describing myself, okay?
Okay. No,
I'll call it stubborn.
Yep. Okay.
But maybe pig-headed as well. I guess my wife might agree with that.
Yeah. So tell us about the Natural Family Foundation.
Sure.
Now, I first met you a couple of years ago at one of Coach Dave's events down in Ohio, and I think you were just getting started at that point.
If that was 4 or 5 years ago, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And it's again, it's something God knows that I'm the type of individual who just walks into the water up to my ears and suddenly decides I need to learn how to swim. So he gave me the ministry, but it's typical Jim jumping into it and trying to do the best he can. Here's what I know. Here's what I know for sure. That if the family is not fixed, and again, keep in mind, I started off with Mark Harrington, and he's in the pro-life movement, and I respect what he does. And I've been in front of abortion clinics, and I've helped save babies. That's critical. And I've talked with other folks that are like Mission America, the director of Mission America, and other organizations, the folks that are fighting the taxes. Oh man, that we have to work so hard just to keep up with the government requirements. It's just I'm surprised we have any time at all with our children. And then there's the Child Protective Services. All those are critical aspects, critical ministries. but they all go personal to the family. I believe they all go to the family. They all attack the family. They all attack the concept of the natural family, be it abortion, be it homosexual marriage, be it taxation, be it pornography, our educational system. All of that has one common enemy, and that's the family. And I believe there's a reason for that. I believe that as a organization, Rob, we're directly over the target.
Well,
Right.
I like the fact that you did name it Natural Family Foundation, because nowadays people can they tend to define it any way they want. You've got actually the majority of young people now are not even getting married; they're cohabitating, and if they get married at all, it's much later and with no desire for children, in a lot of cases. Or you can have two dads and adopt kids, or you can have two moms, and it's whatever they want it to be. But that's not natural,
It
and
isn't.
it's not good for the kids.
And it isn't, because keep in mind, this is a fact. Sociologists will tell you this. History shows you it. And our prison systems attest to it. Children need a male father and a female mother. When you remove one or the other from them, there's a vacuum that's created. And that child will try to fill that vacuum quickly and whatever is in front of them. And oftentimes, like in the inner city, that's gangs, or that's drugs, or that's sex, or pornography, whatever, all the vices. And they do that because it's strong. The need for the mother and the father is the strongest desire that you're ever going to have in your life. It's stronger than any other desires that you have. So it takes a strong substitute to try to replace that.
Well, JR, if you didn't come from a good natural family, you do have a second chance. You can create a good natural family when you get married and create a family. So you do get a second chance at it. But people need to be educated and learn how to do these things right.
It's still as much.
I know that it leaves scars.
Yeah.
I get that, because I get the phone calls, at least 2 or 3 phone calls a week, or emails, or people reaching out for help, because there are people who haven't seen their grandchildren in 8 years.
Yep.
There are people getting divorced for no reason whatsoever, other than one person just won't listen. It's crazy what's going on. And then there are our siblings, and I had a phone call the other day. There's a guy whose brother just got married to a man, and the mom doesn't want to make any waves, so they're trying to maintain this as a family and allow this new person in. And it's people are really messed up, folks.
Yeah. And God gave us the template, and it's very clear about it in Ephesians 5. He not only gives you the template, and this is another thing that's missing in our society. It's not just a man and a woman. It's the structure. And it's God, Jesus Christ, man, woman, children, and that's a vertical relationship. And not only have we messed with the content, but we've messed with the structure. What should be vertical has become horizontal, and there's no authority.
Right.
And again, take a look at the Bernie fans. They'll burn your schools down if they don't get what they want, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Should be a very interesting November, by the way.
And leading up to it.
Yeah. Well, I think afterwards is going to be quite interesting. But this virus that's going around, maybe he's adding a little bit of fuel to the fire. That's interesting. I don't want to get into that, because that can really get us off the subject of where we need to go to. Where, again, it is, I'm over the target. I understand the critical nature of the family. And it's kind of like you can't see the forest for the trees. It is such an obvious thing that I think we have a tendency to overlook it. But again, having come from an environment where I didn't have that, and I started to say that I still miss my father. I mean, he was a horrible man, but if he come back today, and I mean, I would forgive him in a nanosecond with open arms and hug him, because I want and need that so desperately. It never goes
Well,
away.
you have to wonder, what kind of family he came from himself. A lot of these things are generational.
I didn't get to know his family very well.
Yeah.
Alcoholism seemed to be a commonality among them. But anyway, we are where we are today, and I'm just so concerned about. Rob, I was thinking about this all morning, and I'm looking at everything that's going on, and how the enemy seems to be making such incredible advances. It's no longer baby steps; it's giant steps. And every time they take a step, the price of admission goes up for Christians. Now, I hear my Christian brothers and Christians say, count the cost. I hear that. But that cost is going up daily. And Rob, please don't misunderstand this. Everybody has their price. Everybody has their price. And there is a point where you will back off. Christian or no, that you will back off. There's something, and Satan knows what that is, that he can put in front of you, and he can at least get you to hesitate. And at the rate we're going in society today, that something is growing exponentially. There's some things, and it's affecting everybody, be it your children, be it your neighbors. It just goes all through society. And it's just, I'm asking myself, how far am I going to go with this? How far am I going to go with this? I had a friend that this couple weekends ago was found with a bullet hole in his heart, and I covered him on our radio program, and I'm going, wow. Did he commit suicide, or was he assassinated? And it gets you to thinking. I mean, it really does get you to thinking. It gets pretty interesting out there. It's not just about taking the home or even your life. It's about getting those things around you that you love the most.
Absolutely. So what actually is the plan? What is the Natural Family Foundation's plan to get us back on track? If there is hope, how do we get there?
Right. We envision the family restored to its natural form and functioning once again, and considered the primary building block in our society. And we look forward to a future where divorce is non-existent, and gay marriage doesn't exist. You don't have multiple parents. How does that happen? I think one of the keys is affecting public opinion.
Well, you've got to reach the people, and
Yep.
I'm going to just take a wild guess and say that you're not having a whole lot of success in reaching the people through the pastors still, are you?
No. And our movement is bipartisan, by the way. We're not just after the pastors in the church. We've already kind of seen what that's done for us so far, haven't we?
Yeah.
I can tell you that there's more Joe, well, maybe not more, but there's a lot of Joe the Six Packs out there that don't want their 14-year-old daughter being pregnant or their 16-year-old son being a prom queen. And they'll fight for it. They don't have to have the Bible. They don't have to quote verse. They'll fight to keep that from happening.
Right.
And today's public opinion are tomorrow's laws. And tomorrow's laws are the next generation's morals. And you see what's happening here, Rob. You see where our morals are going. downhill quickly. And I know you're in the fight, and Coach is in the fight. And gosh, the names, just there's a lot of folks that are in the fight. But one of the things that we need to do, and I guess that's one of the things we want to do with the natural family, is to unify our efforts. I joke a lot about Christians that if you ever want to start an argument, the first thing you need to do is find a Christian, and the rest will take care of itself.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
We have to learn to be united. And I'm hoping and I'm believing that the family is where we can unite. The pro-life crowd can be part of the natural family movement. The pro-heterosexual marriage, natural marriage, can be part of the natural family movement. Those fighting CPS can be part of that. Those fighting taxes can be part of that. We have on our website, and again, that's naturalfamilystrong.com, naturalfamilystrong.com. On our website, we have a pledge. And by the way, thanks for signing the pledge. I appreciate that. But that pledge right now has somewhere between 400 and 500 people that signed it. Now, one of the problems with the pledge is we're asking people to make a commitment. This isn't a like. You take a look at the pledge, and we're asking you to commit yourself to the family.
Why don't you read that for us, JR? And kind of go through it one
Sure,
point at a time.
Sure. Thanks. The first part of the pledge is, I pledge to support the restoration and the concept of the natural family. I believe the natural family is the foundation of all strong societies, especially the United States. I believe the natural family consists solely of one man, biological born man, one biological born woman, in a lifelong, committed, monogamous relationship to include their biological and or adopted children. I commit myself to work with others to help strengthen this concept. You can do that by going to an abortion clinic, for crying out loud. You can do that by going to your school board meetings. You can do that by fighting taxes. By the way, money is the ability to make decisions. The more money you have, the more decisions you can make. I commit myself to work with others to help strengthen this concept and gladly add my name to the list of Natural Family Foundation supporters. Fourth part, I will do everything within my power to encourage the growth of the natural family and to put it in the prominent place it must occupy in order for this republic to continue to be the greatest nation on earth. 4 simple statements, and it is a commitment, but it's a commitment to the right thing. How can you go wrong plugging the natural family? How can you go wrong supporting the natural family? It just doesn't make, and you're already doing it, just make it official. And the reason I say that is, Rob, imagine this. I'm talking to representatives, and I'm talking to business leaders, I'm talking to educators, and I'm talking to government officials all the time. And the first thing they ask me, well, tell me about the Natural Family Foundation. And I can tell them about the Natural Family Foundation. That's no problem. But imagine this, if I'm talking to a politician and I say to the politician, well, first of all, let me tell you that we have over 40,000 people that support the natural. Wait a minute. We have over 400,000. Wait a minute. We have 4 million people. If Donald Trump can get 62 million people to vote for him, I should be able to say that there's at least 4 million people that support the natural family concept. Can you imagine when I talk to a congressman or a senator and I say that we've got 4 million people that have signed the pledge and it is a commitment, how that changes the conversation? The next thing I'm going to hear out of the person I'm talking with is, let me check our schedule. When can you sit down and talk with the congressman? When can you sit down with the senator? Business leader's going to say, let's have lunch. We need to talk.
Yep.
So that's one of the things we're trying to do. I know it's ambitious, but yet it isn't. It just seems so.
Well, the points in the pledge are pretty basic. I mean, they're pretty. I'd have a hard time understanding how anybody could differ with this, but of course, in the day that we live in. Number two there is you're going to be a point of contention right off the bat with half the people coming out of the government schools.
Yeah, I know, and I get that from them, and I get that from those in the homosexual community. By the way, I loved having arguments with homosexuals because they want to say I'm being judgmental or I'm throwing Bible verses at them, and I say, whoa. I never mentioned anything about the Bible, and I never mentioned anything about judgmental. Your problem is with nature,
Right.
okay?
Mm-hmm.
So you work that out, then come back and talk to me. And they can't, and they know they can't.
Yeah. Well,
go ahead.
9 times out of 10, they've been wounded too by a dysfunctional family. So
more so than we think. The last figures I saw with regards to homosexuals is that 80% of those that are practicing homosexuals, transgenders, that are sexually confused have been sexually abused early on in their life.
Mm-hmm.
And again, here we go again. It's created a vacuum. It's created a need. And they're doing everything they can. Don't make any difference. I'm going to try whatever I can to get rid of this feeling.
Yeah.
And my heart goes out to them. My heart goes out to them. But we can't. It's like drug addicts or alcoholics or any of the vices that you deal with. You don't bring them in and say, okay, well, tell you what, we'll accept you doing this maybe once or twice a week, or maybe a version of it, and that'll be okay. You can't do that because they're not going to get any better. I'm not a psychologist, but
Right.
I've seen enough of people to know what I'm talking about.
So have you developed any sort of curriculum or resources that people can go to actually take action steps, action plan?
I love that question. Great question. On our website, naturalfamilystrong.com,
Mm-hmm.
we just initiated a new program. It's I think gold, silver awards, and we have suggestions what you can do in your church, what you can do in your community, and there's small steps. You can do a little step, you can do a couple steps, you can do a large step. But
Can we look at that, Jared? It would be under I think it's under resources. No?
Yes.
It's under engage, I think.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Go for it. Yes.
Yeah.
And it took this took over a year work to get this down to where it's palatable for the folks out there. And these are small suggestions. You can do it in your home, you can do it in your community, you can do it in your church, you can do it in your schools. You can apply any of these anywhere, or a variation of that. And we don't have all the answers, but they're variations. Yes. And this is a momentum thing that we're trying to establish here, Rob. We're trying to get people started in and making them successful at least one thing. And when they take a look at that and go, oh, I can do this. Maybe this isn't as big as I think it is. And I don't know whether
why don't we look at some of the examples there? Just some of the simple things people can do. And you have societal, spiritual, political, and religion.
There we go. Okay, yeah. First of all, describe the problem,
right?
And then some of the things you can do. You can read an article, find an example about censorship, or the breakdown of the natural family model. Again, the one man, the one woman. Post your findings about censorship or breakdown of the natural family, or write an editorial to your local newspaper. Again, it's a step-by-step. First of all, learn something about it, which means you're probably going to internalize that. And you might something out there in society is going to say, wait a minute, that doesn't jive with what I've read. And then you can have a conversation with your neighbor. You can do what we said there, or you can go to the goal to leadership, which is speak, present at a school board or a civil meeting, what you've read and how it compares. I'll give you an example. I'm talking with a senior center director who just had a series of LGBTQ, it's a good thing to do lectures. And I'm talking, and
This is a senior center?
A senior center. Look, nothing's off limit.
Wow.
Nothing is off limit here. And first of all, I asked them why they did what they did. And they said, well, somebody requested it. And I said, well, if somebody requested a course on how to drink more alcohol, would you have that? And he didn't say anything. And I said, you do understand that this behavior is detrimental, especially to males. And I got that from reading. And then I sent him that information. And now I'm saying to him, okay. Matter of fact, I tried to get David Arthur in there for a class, but they turned that down. But now I'm trying to get myself in the natural family and speak about the family. And I will have David Arthur or somebody like that, Linda Harvey from Mission America, in on that conversation. But that's bold. And I'm not asking you to do that. I'm just getting the example. But I can tell you that once you start getting this information, once you start internalizing it, and that's part of our learning program, you get the information, then you internalize it, and then we want you to act on it. And small actions are as good as the big actions. Anything helps at this point.
Yeah, it really is a step-by-step process here that anybody can do, the simplest of things.
Mm-hmm.
People use Facebook all the time. A lot of this is very easy to do. And like you said, you do internalize the information, but then you share it and kind of multiplies.
You'll surprise yourself. You'll be in a conversation with friends and they'll say something. And because you've done your work, you're going to go, well, and by the way, I really love Jesus' style because he asked a lot of questions. A lot of them rhetorical, but he asked a lot of questions. Mm-hmm. And I highly recommend when you start approaching this is that you do it in question form. How does that work out? That's what I did with this director. How does this help an individual? You tell me how it helps out. By the way, I'm going to supply you with information that shows you, maybe not so much. But the question is great. Highly recommended.
So you were successful in getting that set up with the director?
Working on that. Okay. I'm not done. I'm not done yet.
Okay.
They want me to go away. They want me to go away, but I'm not. I'm just getting started.
Yeah.
And by the way, everything that they say is information that I can use down the road that I didn't have before, but I do now because I did.
Right. Right.
Talk
you're
is
doing
great.
Your homework.
Yeah. Talk is great. Education is great. Highly recommend it, but you have to apply it. You have to put it into practice. And this is a great way, an easy way to get involved.
So how many levels down does this go?
3.
If we can scroll down there. Okay. 3 levels.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Keep going, Jared. What's at the bottom there? Okay. So yeah. So then we have education, tradition, media, technology, environment. Yeah. And all these things affect the natural family.
Yep. Everything does. And we're giving you different areas to get involved in. What's your area of expertise? What are you most comfortable with?
Right.
And again, if we didn't bring up, we did this for a year, but if we don't have and we don't expect to have all the answers or all the categories, but this is what we boiled it down to. And maybe you're like myself. Well, I don't want to do it there. I want to do it over here. Go for it. And then write us and let us know what you did. We want to hear about those stories.
Mm-hmm.
But this is interactive. This is not something that we want you just to read. We want you to interact with us. We want you to interact actually with society. And
what are some of the other things that you've got on your website for people to avail themselves of?
Well, the pledge,
mm-hmm.
events, and we have to work on that. We're still working on that portion of the website. We spent so much time on the engage, but the events will eventually be that you could go to a state, put your cursor over it, and it'll tell you what's going on in that particular state.
Okay.
And again, those are just examples. Some of those are old examples, but that, again, we've worked so much on this other aspect that we haven't really got to this events, but it's important. It's critical.
Right, right. And what are the resources? And we can just take a look at those. Okay, so yeah. JR has his own radio program too, by the way. So
Last Call Saturday mornings, Christian Talk Radio with a Sting. And again, it's Do Radio. If you're going to deal with myself or anybody that's with us, we're going to almost insist that you do.
right.
We're not here to entertain you. We're here to put you to work.
Mm-hmm.
Those are some ministries that we deal with.
Okay. Great. So
we
you got all
recommend
kinds of resources on there.
Mhm.
Am I on that list?
I don't know.
Well, I should be.
You should be, yeah.
If I'm not,
Soaring Eagle. No, that's
there we are. Yeah,
Wisconsin Christian. Yeah.
Good for you.
Whoa,
You're off the hook.
We're not cutting this program short. That's good.
So, well, this is good. We want people to go to the website, naturalfamilystrong.com, and use these resources, take the pledge, get engaged. But what do you say, JR, to people who are dealing with broken homes, broken families, troubled kids, prodigals? I mean, I like I said, I get these calls all the time, 2, 3 a week. And more it has to do with the homosexual issue, but it's a wide variety of issues. And it all comes back to broken families.
I would use basically what I just told you about myself and use me as example, or somebody like David Arthur. I mean, I grew up in a living hell. I mean, there's no two ways about it. I grew up in a living hell.
Mm-hmm.
I can actually say that the hell that I went through, the family, the losing a son, the divorces, everything that I've gone through, I can now say that I thank God for all of that. It doesn't happen. The toughest thing to do is to do it while you're in that moment. That's the toughest thing to do. But at least I can sit back and say, okay, wow, I wouldn't know that if that hadn't happened. I would have been cold if that hadn't happened. It's opened up so many areas of understanding for me, and it's a process. But people get through these things, and there may be down periods. There may be the chasing whatever vice you have, but you eventually, if you keep trying, you'll eventually come out the other end on top of it. I haven't come out totally on top of it. I mean, there's still wounds, there's still scars, but I even use those when I get into troubled situations. And I got through that. This situation compared to what I've been through, are you kidding me? Piece of cake.
Yeah. Well, they all make up part of your testimony, and people can't argue with that. And yeah, I can relate to that. I've had more than my share of mistakes, and God has, amazingly, I don't usually see it in the moment, like you said, but years later, you see how He has worked those things together for good. And I wouldn't be able to be doing what I'm doing if I wasn't full of scars myself. So.
And I've got a challenge for anyone in your audience. For the first one that can prove to me that the family is not the key, that if we don't fix it, nothing else is going to work, I'll send their minister to them a check for $100. But you're not going to find it, because if you don't fix the family, nothing else is going to work.
Right. And it begins with dad and mom, doesn't it? Well,
and I've really stayed away from this subject, but the male of the species is the one that has really left us down. Hello.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Like I said, when I have my children, it's not my job to educate them. Mama comes in and says, "Hey, the kid's got to go to soccer practice today. You want to stay there and watch football and have your favorite adult beverage? Yeah, sure. Go ahead." No. It's not their job. It's your job. And you have to show the leadership. And I think that's where I don't know how exactly we do this, but the men have to lead this charge. And sadly, I see an awful lot of women out there trying to help out with their husbands. Well, they're working, okay? They don't have time to do this. Bunk. You want something done? You want it done right? Find a busy man to do it.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, and it has to be more than mom threatening the kids with just wait till your father gets home. So
I hear that. And I love that. I love that expression. I love it.
It's,
Hey, I really appreciate the time that you've given me today. I hope I haven't machine gunned most of your audience out of here.
no, it's incredibly relevant topic. And I've been looking forward to having you on because of that. So, by the way, JR also writes a monthly column for Wisconsin Christian News, and he has made some excellent points in his articles. So I encourage you to look those up in every issue. So what you writing about next month or this month?
I know it's due. I'm struggling. I had one subject I was going to talk about.
I think we talked about that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Phil Haney, but I'm really on to this. The price that we pay here, and the price is going up. That's really on my heart today. I hope people see, especially the men and the pastors, because of what they haven't done, and the fathers because of what they haven't done, how far along we are. Wow.
You know, the institutional churches today, I have to just say that they are not taking their responsibility seriously with the young people. Parents drop the young people off at a youth group, and it's pizza parties and happy fun time. Well, Sunday school has gone from solid teaching to let's just get through this hour until the parents pick them up, and we'll let them run wild and color pictures and play in the church gym. And hopefully we'll get through this hour, and then somebody else will have Sunday school next week.
Good. I have a suggestion for the pastors. The next time that happens, you grab that parent in their car keys and say to them, "Where do you think you're going?"
Well, they actually set it up for them in our area. They have parents' night out. You drop your kids off, and we'll take care of it. And they entertain them all night long. So, that's our situation. So, okay. I'd love to see you speaking in churches and some of the conferences that are going on, and people need your message, and they need to get engaged with your organization. So,
naturalfamilystrong.com. I can be reached there.
Okay. Well, thank you, JR. Appreciate you coming on today. Anything you want to leave us with that we didn't mention already?
I think I've already said too much.
You did it just right. So, well, thank you. Folks, next week we have Ray Comfort from Living Waters Ministries. And following that, we will be speaking with Chance Gibson on March 18th on prepping and GMOs and the food that we eat. So thank you for joining us today on WCNTV. You can find out more information about us at WCNTV.net or our newspaper at WisconsinChristianNews.com. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next Wednesday. God bless.